Going Crow. Hello, I'm your host, Merit. Welcome to the first episode. The one you've heard was like the beginning of the book. I hope you guys having a good day. Is it me or am I the only one who into Stream and Speak Now by Taylor Swift? I get so much joy listening to Back to December. It's such a great song. If you're a Swiftie, I want to know what's your favorite song on the album. We all have different genres, maybe blues or rock, others into K-pop. But can that affect us? Research shows that music can subconsciously affect our moods and influence our personal behaviors. Yeah, we feel so happy when we turn on the radio and we find our favorite song is playing. Music represents our culture. Who doesn't like holiday music? Either it's Hanukkah, Christmas, or Eid for Muslims. Singing, playing instruments can improve pain tolerance. Even children, you guys, learn the alphabet through a song. Music can put a smile on your face, maybe make you feel like dancing. Perhaps you've noticed that if there is music you specifically don't like, it can make you irritable or want to turn it off or get away from it. We're more likely to choose music that matches where we are at emotionally. If we're already in a negative mindset, or worse, already depressed, we're more likely to choose music that we can emotionally relate to. From my perspective, music really mimics our true self. We find the type which represents us. It can influence our style, our thinking, and sometimes we feel drawn to the artist itself, which often turns into an obsession. We can be inspired by a lyric that can give us ideas for arts and creation. But the question goes, does that can grow a negative behavior that could lead to a crime? Let's have a talk, yeah. Grab your drink and let's see. Aristotle believed that music shapes a person's personality, saying, if over a long time a person habitually listens to music that rouses ignoble passions, his whole character will be shaped to an ignoble form. Do you guys agree? Some feel that certain genres encourage violence, and few even believe that the artists themselves are demon-possessed or satanic. Yeah, as we said about Travis Scott. Specific songs have been blamed for rights, rebellion, and suicide. Murderers have even claimed that music has inspired them to kill. Do you guys know the song Rooney by Metallica? In 2002, a 28-year-old Ronald Peach, or Ronald Putic, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, he murdered his own mother using a 9-kilogram dumbbell. He became enraged after his mother refused to buy him a pack of cigarettes. After killing her, he tied up his 5-year-old niece and fled on his motorcycle. Afterwards, he searched for his old high school mate, Nikki Roberts, whom he had been harassing for an extended period, as he genuinely believed she was his soulmate. This gives a clear display of the kind of mindset he had. Let's continue. While looking for Nikki, he came across the 11-year-old Gregory Katzenlin, who was riding his bike on a route to meet some friends. Ronald stabbed Gregory to death and disposed of his body in a nearby. His lawyer claimed he had a history of severe mental illness, including paranoid schizophrenia and manic depression. When given his testimony, Ronald said he saw demons on people's faces and that song Rooney by Metallica had influenced his mental break. He was quoted, I was drinking and I was out of it. That song was always in my head too. There was just so much pressure building up. I caved. Don't worry, he's sentenced to 50 years in jail for his murders in 2004. If he was suffering from mental illness, I believe he should have sent in a rehab for treatment, not just jailing him. Do you guys believe that song can affect you that much? Hear me out. Lyrics may inspire us, enlighten ideas in our minds, It doesn't push us to commit crimes. We're the ones who choose to do the act. Take the Beatles, for example. The lyrics of their song Helter Skelter motivate Charles Manson. He felt the lyrics were speaking directly to him. He was influenced by artworks and music of the time, but really, Manson, like any psychotically predatory man whose violence has hypnotized American culture, he was really just an everyday misogynist. He was a master manipulator, abused young women who continued to carry out his thirst for violence, even after he was in jail. The family, or his cult, was a group of around 100 followers. They called themselves the Mansingers. They even wrote the words Helter Skelter with their victims' blood. Charles Manson only gave wealth and fame, power. Paul McCartney has said that the playground slide in Helter Skelter was a metaphor for the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Manson, however, interrupted the song's lyrics as an incitation to being a race war. His explanation for the murders was simple and bizarre. He quoted at his trial, "It's the Beatles, the music they are putting out. These kids listen to this music and pick up the message. It's subliminal. It's not my music. I hear what it relates. It's his rise, it's his skill. Why blame it on me? I didn't write the music." This is, guys, the definition of how music subconsciously affects our minds. Clearly, he turned the album and lyrics to justify his scheme and guide his followers to kill.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight razor if you get too close to me.
There's another case. It has a bit of a media propaganda going around. When police discovered the AC/DC hat in one of the crime scenes of Richard Ramirez, and when the stories came out about how much Richard loved the band AC/DC, it became unfortunately linked to the killer. And it was rumored that the song Night Prowler compelled him to kill, even though Richard didn't confirm that. The song described a man sneaking into a woman's house, although there is no evidence that the song was a specific influence on Ramirez. However, there were eerie similarities between the lyrics and the crimes. If you listen to the lyrics, it's kinda describe Richard's steps for his murders, which is so scary, you guys. But the media likes to link stories to polarize public opinion. Isn't it weird calling him the Night Stalker on the rhythm of the Night Prowler? Who is here to blame? Do we blame the artist or ourselves? Drugs, violence, sex, racism and money have been present in music in years, include the lyrics of both Eminem and Marilyn Manson being linked to moral panic around gun crime. Speaking of Marilyn Manson, he was blamed for the massacre that occurred in April 20, 1999 at Columbian High School in Linton, Colorado. Listen, if you don't like Marilyn Manson as an artist or you don't totally support his music, he was innocent in this case. We have to admit that. So the case starts by Eric Harris. He did appear to have trouble finding his place, wore preppy clothes, played soccer, and developed an interest in computer. But he was also harboring a deep hatred for the word. He once wrote in his journal, "I want to grab some weak little freshmen and just tear them apart like a fucking wolf, strangle them, squish their head, rip off their jaw, break their arms in half, show them who is God." seemed from his own words he was more than angry, but genuinely of the belief that he was bigger, he was more powerful than the rest of the world. Meanwhile, Eric met Dylan Klebold, a fellow student who shared some of these dark ideas. United in their cynical view of the world, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold spend their time playing violent video games, dressing in black, and eventually diving deeply into their mutual curiosity and affection for guns and explosives, or more generally, destruction. They fostered an unhealthy interest in Hitler, Nazi iconography, and the violence of the Third Reich. They slowly drifted to the peripheries of their community, actively giving each other a Hitler salute as a greeting while bowling together. Wow, what a friendship! Their idea was to set off bombs in the school cafeteria. This would include mass panic and force the entire school to flood outside into the parking lot, only for Eric and Dylan to spray rounds of bullets into every single person they could. When the time came, with the bombs failing to go off, Eric entered the school about 11 a.m. after they had killed 3 students outside the school and wounding several others. From there, they began to shoot anyone they encountered, 1 teacher, and wounded 20 more. Then, they turned their guns on themselves. This is so insane. The initial shock of the massacre quickly turned to a total confusion. Parents, teachers, police officers, and journalists were all mystified as to how 2 teenagers could so easily and seemingly joyfully murder a dozen classmates and a teacher. Evidence from Harris' website and both boys' journals shows they hoped to blow up the entire institution. Oh, I'm grateful that the bombs failed. Can't imagine how many would have been dead. In the weeks before the massacre, Eric and Dylan began recording home videos in which they bragged about their plan to kill 250. In one, they even apologized to their parents for what they planned to do. 6 weeks before the killing, the pair filmed themselves in a forested area, shooting at blowing pins. It was reported that those troubled teenagers were obsessed with doom. Well, it's a first-person shooter video game in which the aim is to kill enemies. In a video recorded before the shooting, Harris says the massacre is going to be like fucking Doom. When the massacre happened, everyone was trying to understand what's their motive or what's their reason to do that. Again, media propaganda and misinformation has been around in years. When media coverage faded, reporters and investigators soon learned that some of the initial reports were wrong. They weren't a part of the trenchcoat mafia, that they weren't bullied by other students, and that they didn't target popular jokes, African Americans, or any other group. Also, choosing the date of the attack to mark Adolf Hitler's birthday, it wasn't true. Yeah, they were inspired by Hitler, but their goal was actually plain to do it on the 9th, the anniversary of the Oklahoma bombing. Their target was to beat the fatality count that Timothy McVeigh had caused. The only reason they didn't try to attack the school on the 9th was because the ammunition Eric needed was not going to be ready until the next day. So it was kind of a luck for the massacre to match Hitler's birthday. They planned for a year and dreamed much bigger. The media sought to make sense of the violence. One hysterical theory gained traction after the pair were wearing t-shirts simulating Marilyn Manson. It was claimed that his music, yeah, as you figured, were inspiring for them. People who play Marilyn Manson, like, let's be honest here, these 2 killers were far from normal teens. Eric was a psychopath and Dylan battled depression. Unlike psychotic individuals, psychopaths are rational and aware of what they are doing. Diagnosing Eric as a psychopath represents neither a legal defense nor a moral excuse, but it eliminates a great deal about the process that drove him to mass murder. You know what's the odd thing? Their parents. I can't believe they didn't see any red flags in these kids. How could they be so willfully ignorant of their child? Heavy metal, rock and gangster rap artists should not be responsible for the new generation acting out. The mention of the violence for many artists is simply a result of what they are seeing and experiencing around them. The talk about drug dealing can be a result of the areas or families grow up in. The talk of drug use could be a cry for help from addiction. This lifestyle isn't for everyone. The effect it has on its fans isn't quite so negative as you might expect. What's important to be aware of the lyrics and how they are impacting you. Listening to a song or a playlist over and over, it's similar as if you're eating fast food for every meal. You have to make sure it's not affecting your mental health, not just in short term or in the moment, but for days or even weeks after listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. Bye.